he looked up at me and said, "Boy, you'd make a beautiful woman." I didn't know what was going on then, but I figured it out later. But anyway, we stayed at Fort Slocum, and there was a news camp on an island above us, and them people get out there with field glasses and sort of spy on. I don't guess I ever looked. I don't know. Don't remember. Well, I didn't. But anyway, they had a beach there, and that was the coldest water I ever tried to get in. You could go swimming at a certain time after hours. Anyway, the day came that they took us to the Brooklyn, well, not Army Base, but
Naval Yard?
Naval Yards. And they had an old Republic, the old transport ship. It must have been made back during Noah's Ark day. And they loaded 5,000 some people on that boat. And we was in a convoy. That was the first big convoy, Army convoy that ever went. We thought was headed for the Philippines, but we got through, was in the North Atlantic. Went by Greenland, you could see the Greenland ice cap. And anyway, what they do is zigzag back and forth. The German submarines was sinking everything that went over. Well, anyway, the battleship Oklahoma was on one side of this transport, and the West Virginia was on this side. Battleships, and then they had destroyers all the way around us. And one night, the fog was so thick that you couldn't see in front of you. Well, we zigged where we should have zagged and got lost. And they had every battleship in that fleet looking for us. And just so happened that it cleared up just in time. That West Virginia battleship was going to cross in front of us, and we was headed direct for it. And you talking about the brakes screeching and the horns blowing, we didn't hit them, but they were almost. And what they done from then on, they put ropes back with a runner so the pilot of that boat could see where we was going. I mean, it was foggy, you couldn't see nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, on the boats you could hear an explosion over next to you. Maybe one of the cargo ships would go up. Well, they'd blow it up. We went, we was on boat for 8 days. And the first thing you know, we pulled into a place that all you could smell was fish. They docked us in the harbor there and says, "Boys, you are all in Iceland." Said you didn't go to the Philippines, but come to Iceland. But now we was the first to the reason that you couldn't send draftees over seas at that time. There wasn't no war declared, so they had to send regular army. Well, the Germans had been in Iceland building an airport. They was building submarine pens and coves, and if they would have got control of that and got settled in Iceland, it'd have been a different war. I mean, the war would have been different, because they could cut the supply lines off to England out. And anyway, we stayed on that boat, I guess, a week, get off and then go into Iceland and had to prepare the barracks for us. They was using huts, it wasn't barracks. 12 men to a barracks. And we went out, I guess, way out from the town was Reykjavik where we got off. But we was out of town, out in the boondocks. And in the meantime, Marines was with us too. I mean, if the Marines goes in first at that time, they could say they was protecting the embassy. Then the Army could come in and take over. So we stayed out there about 2 months, and they moved us back into Reykjavik. And I stayed in Iceland 2 years. And one day they told us to pack up our bags, get ready, took us down to the boat docks and put us on another ship. And that was, I don't remember what the name of that ship was, but anyway, we didn't have an escort. What they do, they had what they call a PBY plane that'd fly overhead every day. They said the ship was fast enough they could run out and run a submarine if they'd see one. So we was 5 days on that one, and when they docked, said you're in Glasgow, Scotland. And we got off Scotland, off in Glasgow, and the Red Cross was there with tea and cookies. And stayed there for about an hour and loaded us up on a train. Went through Scotland all the way down to in England, what they called Tidworth Barracks. Well, we thought we had her made down there, but there's a colored town and a colored outfit in a little town there, and they said it was off limits to white soldiers. Well, that's just like them old Kentucky. Everybody in the regiment that I was in was from Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, and Virginia. They're all rednecks, so some of them decided they'd go down and see what was going on. Well, they got down there and got in a fight, and they killed 2 soldiers. And black boys did. Well, one Saturday, everybody got a pass, and somebody got the idea they were going down and clean the place out. So when the trucks come around and pick you up going pass, they loaded everybody up in it, and they went down. They had to call MPs out of London, everywhere else, to try to get a. They went down and started riots. Them niggers, colored boys. Well, they got it settled down, and they took us back to barracks, and old Eisenhower told them, says, get them idiots out of England. So they loaded us up on a train again. Went back to Glasgow. They loaded us up on a boat there and sent us to Ireland. We was there a year. And in the meantime, we'd go down to the air base there, and we had waterproof jeeps and put snorkels on them, and getting ready for the invasion of France. Then we'd go down and they'd load us on a boat, and we'd stay on there 2 days and get off. And we done that every other week. Go down and go in our air base and fix the jeeps up and pack your bag. And come back off the boat, go back to the barracks. And one morning got up and I said, well, they just invaded France. But the reason we wasn't on the first, the 4th Division and the 5th Division was in Ireland. and the 2 commanding generals got out on the middle of the field and flipped a coin and says, I'll take heads and you take tails. Head goes to the invasion. And flipped the coin up in there and it came down the heads. That was the 4th Division. That's the reason we didn't go on the first day. But when I went into France, went in Utah Beach, and I went in the First Army. They put us in the First Army. Well, they old Blood and Guts. He was all gung ho to have. Wanted to put him in charge of an army. Called him in. He said, "Well, you're going to France. We're going to form a third army." So they transferred us from the third army to the First Army to the third. And he was one of these kind of dudes that he didn't listen to nobody. If he decided to do something, he'd do it anyway. But no, I'd been seen him, been as close to him as 10 foot.
General Pat.
General Patton. And one time, I passed him right beside in a Jeep right beside the road and stopped. And there's a boy named Skin Collins. He's from Cambridge, Ohio. He was I guess must have been 35, 40 years old. And old Blood and Guts stopped in front of him, and Skin didn't call him Skin because he's bald headed. He didn't salute him, and I guess Patton chewed him out. He said, "Don't you realize you're looking at me?" and didn't salute. Well, he didn't do anything to him. He just chewed him out and went on. But we broke through the line. We was the first one broke through going across France. Cause he had made up he was gonna get some glory out of it. Well, we was ahead of everybody else in the whole outfit, the English Army and the French Army and and we was ahead of everybody else that couldn't keep up supplies to us. We run out of gas, and everybody, the tanks was stopped on the side of the road. We was getting German gas when you could find it, put in the Jeep I was in. Anyway, he decided that he was called back. He said, "I got to have gasoline." And they said, "You can't get any. It's on the way somewhere else." He said, "Montgomery, I know Montgomery is going to get damaged." But anyway, when the convoy of gasoline came through, he hijacked it. He filled up his tanks and went in cars and went on. He hijacked, and you talking about raising Cain, I guess they give him a chewing out. But anyway, we ended up in Moselle, France, ahead of everybody else. Had to wait there till everybody else caught up with us. And well, they got what they call a Maginot Line. It was a fortress. It was 100 miles long. They had pillboxes and underground tunnels that went from miles and miles and miles. Had hospitals. Germans did hospitals and cafeterias. I don't know, anything you need, they could live underground. And if you had go along with a pillbox, a machine gun could pop up out of the ground and just mow you down if you wasn't wanting. And these pillboxes, they was so thick that what they had to do, they'd have to bring a tank up within 100 yards, what they call armor piercing. They'd have to put one of those shells in there and point blank at one of those pillboxes, and it'd take 5 or 6 to penetrate them. That's the way they done away with them pillboxes. And anyway, after we got in, was a town, Saarbrücken, France. And they'd halted us. I mean, we was in rest areas. I got a pass to go see my brother. I knew he was in Luxembourg somewhere, or in Belgium. Well, they give me a 3-day pass. And I started thumbing and got on a coal truck. He said, I can't put you up here in front, but you can ride on the back in that coal. So I got up at Luxembourg to the chief headquarters. And I went in and I said, I'd like to see my brother. I know he's in Belgium somewhere. They looked it up and said, we can't tell you. They wouldn't give me a pass to go see him. Well, I stayed in the MP headquarters that night and got it next morning and headed back for the company. And we was down there. They had a plan to invade Germany, the Third Army. And 2 days, if it lasted 2 more days, we'd have been invading Germany. But in the meantime, the Germans had broke through in Luxembourg, what they call the Battle of the Bulge, and they had, it looked so pretty bad. Patton says we can lose this war if we don't do something about it. And they got together and he said, I can have an army in Luxembourg in 2 days. And they told him he's crazy. So they pulled us out, the whole division, and marched 100 miles, no sleep, no eat, no nothing to eat but K rations. Didn't stop. When they got to Luxembourg, they threw us right into the battle. And the 4th Armored Division, we were the 4th Armored Divisions, and what their objective was, in Bastogne, the 101st Airborne was surrounded, and the objective was to go to relieve them. And the 5th Division, the 4th Armored Division, and ones that broke through the lines, the German lines, to relieve them. Anyway, that was the coldest winter that was on record. I didn't know it got down to 20 below zero, but I guess it did. You dig a foxhole and you had to stay in that. Anyway, if you could get in a house to stay, that's where you'd get in. And anyway, we cut the Germans off, surrounded them all, but their Panther tanks was trying to run out of gas. And the only thing we had was field jackets. The Germans, they had winter clothes on. They had big parkers and all that, and we had field jackets and helmets, and that was it. Now, listen, there was more people that was injured by the weather than was killed. And anyway, stopped the German advance and turned around, and they was headed back for Germany. We got for Frankfurt. That's on the Rhine River, and they hauled us there, and we had to give us a 2-week break. Anyway, then when the whole army, old Patton told Montgomery he would pee in the Rhine River before he did. And the picture come out in the Stars and Stripes that General Patton was down on the riverbank peeing in the Rhine River while Montgomery was trying to make up his mind up in the north what he's going to do.
Him and Montgomery was mortal enemies. Montgomery was the
But Patton called him a prima donna. He said, I know I'm a prima donna, but he won't admit it. But anyway, we crossed the Rhine River, and that's when the German army we were free to go anywhere we wanted to. But we went all the way across Germany. They wouldn't let us go into Berlin. But in the meantime, we saw these concentration camps. I made a mistake by opening up a door one time in a warehouse to look back, and they had the Jewish people stacked up 5 foot high all the way across the biggest football field that was full of bodies. Anyway, some of the 5th Division went in Buchenwald, and they relieved the prisoners in there, and we ended up in Czechoslovakia. Ended up in Passau, or what they call Passau. The Russians was on one side and we was on the other. So they decided they were going to let the Russians take. We had to back up like a bunch of idiots. Patton decided to get together and get the army and says, let's get the German army together and our army and whip these Russians. He said we're going to have to fight them one time or other, which he's about right. And they called him crazy. But anyway, I stayed in, they signed the armistice, but in the meantime we was in this town. It was 3 days before the war ended. And my buddy, Charlie Dunlap, he was in a different company. They found him out, tied up to a tree with him and another boy. And the Germans had come in and took bayonets and killed both of them. I mean, and they was tied up to a tree dead. Well, the commander come back, and the SS trooper done it. And you could always tell an SS trooper because he had his serial number tattooed under his left arm. He went back into town and got a whole bunch of them young men in there and checked them out and got 7 of them. And he was a commando. He'd been a commandos. He was a German descent. He could talk. He lined them all up on the floor and got them on their knees. He said, if you've got anything to say to your maker, you'd better say it now. He took a .45, went behind them and shot each one of them in the back of the head. And anyway, I went back to a little town named Winterberg. I was there 3 days. And Schweinberg, Fred Schweinberg, was a good friend. They come, got him, told me and him to report to the, that was after the war was over, the order room, where we set up at. And they said, you boys go pack your bags, you're going home. And so they loaded us up in the Jeep, took us across the Danube River, over into, well, what country? Anyway, we got on, they had an airport over there. They put us on a C-47, that was a transport plane. It took me an hour and 10 minutes to leave there and get back to where it took me a year to get, and landed in Le Havre, France. An hour and 10 minutes to get back to where it took a year to go. Schweinberg, he stayed there for 3 days. He got in a crap game.
Eddie?
Anyway, Schweinberg got in a dice game. He lost his paycheck. Well, I had about $500 some. And he come back and said, "Give me $100. I'm hot. I'm going back in that crap game." I said, when are you going to pay me back if you lose? He said, "Don't worry about it." So he's in that crap game. And he come back and handed me $4,000. He said, "I'm going to keep half of it and you keep half of it." He said, "If they rob me, I know I've got that." So I kept the $4,000 for him. And he gave me my money back with the interest. I got on a boat and come back. Oh, I got on a hospital ship. And I mean, this colored boy, that's the first time I ever stayed with a colored boy in one room. We both have sergeants, and they put us in a room together. And what me and him would do, we'd go down in the morning and make sure that everybody got chow. And we was in charge of the messket line. Everybody had to wash dishes. We made sure that they done it. So we got on the ship and come back and landed in, well, I mean, we went in a storm. I didn't think we was going to make it. The waves was going over that hospital ship. Here'd come one, and I mean, it was so big that you'd just go on top of it. And anyway, we got back docked, and me and him was looking over the side of the boat. Schweinberg, and looked down there, and here were these colored people. The white man with the bullwhip, cracking that bullwhip, and them colored boy covered me and pulling that boat on the tow line, pulling the boat in the docket. He looked at me and he said, "You mean to tell me that me being over there in the Army, and I'm going to come back here to that?" And anyway, we parted company. He gave me his address. I had it for a long time. He lived in Virginia and he wanted me to come visit him, and I never did, which I'm sorry I didn't. Anyway, they shipped me in Schweinberg to Fort, was in Camp Henry. And they told us there, they said, there was only 300 of us. We was the first 300 that was discharged out of the Army. They weighed down, I mean, in the mess hall, we had special privileges. They had German prisoners that they waited on us. We had T-bone steaks, anything we wanted to eat. That was, I mean, the old soldiers there, they didn't get that. But anyway, they shipped us to Fort Meade, Maryland, and that's where I was discharged. But anyway, everybody, had us all in one barracks. And here these people was leaving out to discharge them and leave and go home. Discharge and leave and go home. I was in that barracks by myself. I went down to the to the headquarters.